Welcome to Poemalogues. My name is Dasha Kelly Hamilton. I am the Poet Laureate for the city of Milwaukee and for the state of Wisconsin. Poemalogues is my chance to gather some pretty impressive human beings in one space to have an authentic conversation about wonder or joy or legacy or justice. But when it's wonder, you already know it's going to be a day full of smiles. When it's wonder, you already know that it's a story that's going to leave you wanting more. And the poem that I found is definitely about wanting a little bit more and wondering if more is okay. But before we get to that poem, I am so excited to invite you to celebrate with me our guest today, who has a pretty wondrous experience. I'm excited for him to tell you all about his story. So please welcome all the way from Milwaukee, we have Deshawn McKinney joining us today. Good morning.
Hey, morning to you. So happy to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. It's good to see your face.
I know, look, you got the beard now too.
I mean, it's real. It's all they're
years.
connecting where it's supposed to. Oh man. Remember the struggle days though?
The struggle day. Like this took me a whole quarantine to finally get down.
I mean, you would stick to something.
Yeah.
And when is and as an aside, born as a woman and only observed this process through male friends and movies.
Yeah.
Was it really the staring in the mirror, wanting this one hair to connect to that one, waiting for this? What was that moment like when you were waiting for this to come to happen?
You know, both of my brothers have been able to grow beards since like middle school or high school, whatever. And so, you know, during my struggle days, my brother would look at it and just like, that ain't a beard. That's not it, you know? So it's not the full goatee yet. It's still going to connect, but we're going to give myself some grace and just praise what has blossomed.
Absolutely.
You know?
We are not going to connect shame right now. Absolutely. We are praising what has blossomed.
For sure. You have those moments though, where you're just like, if only, just right there. just, you know, trying to get the timing right, what product, you know.
Oh my goodness, a product. And then you break down. I had a classmate that just went and got his sister's mascara brush just to fill it in. I know. He didn't think we would notice.
I ain't been down that bad yet. Like
he didn't think we noticed, and we had to tell him that we did. We what is fam? What is this right here? Yeah. But we all hope springs eternal, right? And he was like, man, you're not growing a beard, you just have hair on your face. I went, ooh.
It's tough. It's ruthless out here.
Ooh, so you're not the youngest, are you?
I am. I'm the baby.
Let's talk about that, shall we?
We need a track in there. Just
you saw it on my face. You saw it.
Yeah.
And I'm the oldest, right? Okay. So just forever, there's going to be looking at down the end at the holiday table.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's cutting your food. Everybody making sure you all right. You're like, yeah. And to the elders, what advice do you give us? How do you see the elders?
I think I see them as guidance and wisdom. And my brothers, I think about the things that they went through to clear a path for me, you know, like they can cut some of the brush and the brambles and get that out the way. So my path is a little bit easier. And I think that's not even it's not necessarily a conscious thing, but it's a part of just their lived experience where they you take those hits and those scratches and those scars. And I think it's also a part of, to elders too, aside from the wisdom and the guidance, is to be open to the youth and, you know, like how we balance each other out, the yin and yang of that situation of what folks and foster that and kind of encourage that. Like, I want you to speak up. I want you to give these ideas and have your opinions and disagree and push me in the same way that I'm pushing you and allowing you to grow.
Do you feel that this may not be a fair question asking you to value backwards, but did you take those lessons? Like, were you the younger that, oh, don't do that? Okay, I better not do that. Oh, twice on that one. Okay, word. You know what I mean? So that I've had colleagues and friends who talk about taking those lessons intentionally. Some were taken care of because they were the older little practice whatever. Some resisted it because you're not going to see me as a baby. You're going to see me as my own self. So it's wonderful to hear you giving your brothers that honor already. And I imagine there weren't days where it was honorable at all. So, and I just know that my jaded, biased position as the eldest, how I how I can come sideways at a youngest sometimes. So I'm truly inviting, and you have and you've always struck me as a very wise person beyond your years, and it's maybe because of these older siblings. But I think in that position, you have to sit in that position in a very intentional way. So talk to me a little bit about how you saw your spot.
Yeah, well, I think it's I was a very introverted kid, and I'm still a very introverted person, a very private person. And I think, growing up, I was just kind of like didn't want attention on me. I was this chubby kid who was kind of like afraid of all these things and dealing with all these things, and I wasn't sheltered in any way. It was kind of like thrown in the fire and going through it. But I just wanted to be in the shell and like, don't notice me. I don't want to bring attention or attacks or anything to me. But I think part of what that did for me, though, is I'm a very observant person, right? So in terms of those lessons, learning those lessons, I think I did have that mental notebook where it's like, and from my brothers and from people in, north side of Milwaukee, people at school, whatever it is, I learned how to move in a very real way and know what I'm looking for when my head is on a swivel. So I think it was a part of just my personality, and the things that made me who I am, that had me in that kind of shell where I become. You almost, in a sense, you kind of like separate yourself from the world, or try to, when you don't want that attention, so you can be an observant of the world.
I love that you said know what you're looking for when your head is on a swivel, which is very different than just looking for something.
Everybody has that.
Oh my goodness. Well, I already know why I think you're amazing. So just tell the good people who you are. What's your whole life story?
Yeah, this is a question right here. Of questions, this is one.
That's the one.
Let's see how I do. So my name is Deshawn McKinney. I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, on the north side. Shout out to the city, as always. I'm the youngest of 3 boys. I was born and bred by Milwaukee and raised by women. They've always been the most important and powerful forces in my life, from, my grandmother and mother who worked multiple jobs to make sure me and my brothers were okay, to teachers who've cared for me, and friendships that have nurtured and pulled out the tenderness in me at times when I think my upbringing had turned me callous to survive. I went to 81st Street School in Milwaukee, which it seemed like everybody else went to a couple other middle schools when I got to high school. So I was an outsider there as a K through 12. Went to Rufus King High School, which I think is international school now. And my senior year of that, I discovered spoken word poetry, stumbled into a slam poetry team at King, which kind of, I think shaped my life path. Went to UW-Madison on the First Wave Scholarship, which is a hip hop arts scholarship. Have been touring the country and the world, performing, fellowshipping with folks, building with folks. Won a couple scholarships to grad school. Did a master's at the London School of Economics and Political Science in London, and a master in poetry in Norwich, England at the University of East Anglia. Got back to the US last year in a whirlwind of things, figuring it out. Now here I am speaking to you.
Right quick.
Right quick.
Right quick. I mean, I just living my whole life. That's all.
Yeah.
What a story, sir. Does it surprise you still some days? Most days?
It does, and I think I have I've been grateful for a lot of moments, and I talk to my homies about this, where we're hiking somewhere or wherever we are, and we have a moment like, what is life? And I'm very grateful that I've had so many of those moments. I've been on tops of mountains in China and things like that, and standing under waterfalls, and coming from Milwaukee, I never dreamed it was possible. And from my family circumstances, didn't know I could do those things. And to have those experiences, very humbling and helps focus me in my life as I, like helps clarify my purpose as I move through.
Say more about that.
Well, I feel like, I'm very much somebody who subscribes to the village mentality, right? Like we take care of each other. And it's not, again, it's not even, it's just what you do. It's almost like an innate thing that you do, part of your own life force to sustain yourself. You have to give to others and take care of those. So when I think about all the experiences that I've had, for me, what's natural and what makes sense is to give them all back. I want other kids on the north side of Milwaukee to know that they can go to China and that's possible. They can go to London. They can become Marshall and Truman and Rhodes Scholars. They can do all those things and that is real. And that is not just TV. Because, I've had those moments too. I remember there's certain places that I've now visited in the world where my first time going there was playing a video game, right? And then I get there in real life and I'm like, oh, no. Like, I know this place. Like, like,
wait a minute, level 7. Yeah.
Right there,
You're dragging over here.
Like, so I want other kids to have that. Growing up, I remember when I got to undergrad at UW-Madison, and I started meeting people whose parents were like chemists and things like that. And for me, I was like, that's TV stuff. It's like, y'all do that, Like
people get up and go to work and
do that. And I because I've never met anybody like that on the north side. So it just feels so distant. And those kind of opportunities and experiences feel distant. And I want them to feel close and possible and normal.
I'd be curious how, and I'm like, what is your strategic plan for this? So it's not the question.
I'm glad you asked.
Right. But I do have a how question, and remembering being that kid, and you had a chance to go into classrooms and have some exposure to young people. The how to make it feel possible, even though it will be distant to that 4th grader, that 9th grader, that whatever young person you go speak to. And what's interesting in connecting, you mentioned being a first wave scholar. When I would go and I used to do recruiting for first wave. And when I would go and give these presentations and go introduce, hey, here's this opportunity. We can what? So it's out of what seems the realm of what's real. And then coming into contact with especially young people who haven't been given the permission to accept things that don't feel real. So they're not going to try. They're not going to apply. They're not going to consider. They're not going to go on your magical ride to these foreign exotic places because of this limitation in imagination. So coming from a space of experience of seeing the look of those one pair of eyes where that young person is like, nah, I don't believe this. I don't believe it because I can't see it. So being present is part of it. So having been that kid, what would make someone believe that it's possible, that these wondrous things that you bring to that class or that room, what would be your approach to make it feel possible? Does that make sense? You can imagine that cousin or that person, that student that I'm thinking of who would.
I've still got homies that we're trying to break out of that. So, but let me say this, right? So show you where my head was. My senior year of high school, right? Like I said, stumbled into slam poetry. They called it writing club, so I didn't know what it was. And it turned out to be that. And that's when, I met you and all the wonderful things you did. And then that year, you took us to Passing the Mic, a group of seniors. For my mind, what I heard when the opportunity came was we get to stay in a hotel for the weekend. And I had never been in a hotel before. And I was like, say less. And I wasn't thinking about first, whatever this.
Yeah. But the speaker, okay, cool.
It's cool. Like, yeah, I hear you. That's but this hotel, like I was.
And they got breakfast.
Yes. So that's where my head was at, right? So that the idea of this bigger and this possibility was not even. I wasn't there yet. I wasn't yet built for that. I was still building towards that. So when we talk about how do you break kids out of that, I think part of it is showing them that you did it, and not just like I'm somebody who's achieved, but like I'm somebody who was you, right? Like and like to see me who had grown up on the north side, who just wanted to be in the hotel for the weekend, who again first times I traveled the world was through these video games, and that's all I thought I would ever get. It's just like I was you. I was the kid in the same position, and I look like you. I come from where you come from. I still talk like you, right? And I respect that, and I put, you know, I don't try to shed that in any other place that I'm in. I've been in all these highbrow places now, and you're not going to change the Milwaukee in me, right? And I'm not going to shed that because I don't want these kids to think that they're not worthy to be in these spaces because of who they are. So I think that's a big part of it, showing and connecting in that way. And then I think another part of it is you got to walk the journey with them. They're not going, just because you say you can see the Eiffel Tower don't mean I believe you that first time, right?
Yes.
But you got to work on it. It's like, I'm going to say it to you. I'm going to show you these pictures of me there. We can look at these flights together so you see that there's ways to get there cheaper. We can talk about what you could possibly do in this area, maybe connected to whatever interest you have, because they got something like that in Paris or whatever it is. And so you just, whatever you got to do to walk that journey with them, to just continue to put it in their heads that this is possible. There is more to the world out there. And this world is also for somebody like me. It's not just for folks who come from the money or whose parents are hovering over them and helping them every step of the way. It's also for folks whose parents, only finished third grade and they couldn't help them with the homework after that. Or the kids who had to help their parents fill out documents because their parents don't speak English. Mm-hmm. The kids who struggle through and are undocumented and have to figure it out and navigate this complicated and ugly system. And they can't tell their friends this because they're afraid of what might come back on. Like, all this stuff is also yours too. And I want kids to know that, and that there's nobody that can take that, right? Like, your existence is justified by the fact that you exist. Nobody can take that away from you, right? So I think that is walking that journey with them and continuing to get them. It's like slow churn. Like, you'll get there, and we'll start to get you to believe, and you see it's more possible. And then eventually you get to take that leap, or you push them.
I'm a fan of the two-handed chuck myself.
Oh.
Yeah. Right. The lower, get them out there. How is, oh my goodness. And you've got people, like you mentioned your homies, you've got some that are still, it's to keep them safe. I'd imagine, not knowing them, to keep themselves safe, right? I'm not going to let myself imagine something that I might not be able to get. That's going to hurt. Or no, that's for dudes like you. I'm not smart like you. I'm not XYZ like you. And you're going, no, it's you too. It's you too.
It's that thing. And, I was back in Milwaukee this past year, and I was there for a year, which is the most time I had spent in the city since high school, right? Because I was out and I got to see the world, like I need to experience this stuff before I take it back to the city. And it's one of those things where you see how people, because of the way the world squeezes us and pushes down on us, for their own sanity and well-being and to get through the day, you got to stop thinking about this other stuff. Because if you're always focused on London and all these places, but real life means you got to focus on groceries and baby food and formula and stuff like that, it's just depressing because you're like, I'm not there yet. And I'm just focused on these goals all the time. I guess I should start pointing over here. Maybe, I don't know.
They're in both places, right?
But I think it's that like it's protection for yourself, for your well-being and your sanity and your health and your happiness. So you start to restrict those dreams because you're when you're thinking about survival, all this other stuff, you just couldn't live a happy day if that's what you think about. So I definitely got homies that are like that, and then trying to figure out how do we pull people out of this, because nobody should have to shrink themselves to simply exist and to just simply be surviving, not even thriving, like not living to their full potential or the best they could, just surviving. People shouldn't have to do that.
And how most of the things that you're just in that litany of survival tasks for the day all have to do with math, all have to do with a thing being paid or not, different from what's going to bring me joy, how am I going to make sure that my child has strong esteem. You're thinking of, you're having to stress over the actual nuts and bolts of an enormous machine, which makes it hard to appreciate the enormous machine, this thing called life. And still, you came in with wonder.
Yeah.
How did you enter wonder?
So when I thought of wonder, the first thing what came to mind for me and what is one of the things that endlessly fascinates me. I thought of the vastness of space. That's how I approached it. And I think for me, when I think about that, there's wonder, and inherent in that wonder is pure joy of this beautiful, endless, mysterious space. But all these natural phenomena, things are popping off, these supernova and these black holes and these, all these, there's so much happening. And there's so much, I think, wrapped up in that, like this human capacity to achieve. Of like, we got there, like the space race, it was like JFK was like, we're gonna do this. And then
so 10 years later. Watch what I say.
Right. And 10 years later, it's like, we did this. Right. Back in the first few years of that, the Russians were wiping the floor with the US. Right. But it's just that grind. And before like early 1960s, that wasn't possible. So like that vastness for me is also the kind of represents our capacity to achieve and like to pull that out of us and go. And I think there's something really beautiful and exciting and just happy. Like I said, pure joy is in that space of space.
I see what you did there. There. And to me, where it's not just it's I heard also the wonder on a couple of levels, the wonderment that is space. And then who wondered so hard that you built the thing to get us up there?
That's an amazing sentence. Who wondered so hard?
Who wondered so hard?
Yes.
And to your point, what we're capable of when we're curious, when we wonder really hard. My favorite word, Deshawn, is if. If. Everything is possible with if, right? Not that everything's going to happen, but everything can feel possible. That's
way deeper than my favorite word.
What is?
I said that's way deeper than my favorite. My favorite word is indubitably, because it's hilarious. It's such a great word. I don't know if I should expose myself like that, but you just said
it does do a lot of things. Indubitably. Which cartoon character said it all the time?
I don't know, but I'm trying to watch it. If you let me know.
Indubitably. Oh, I have to. I'm sure the Google will tell us. Go. Yeah, if is my favorite word. This does so much. Oh, I love that though. And I spend a lot of time wondering about. It's more the expanse of space. I was sharing with you, I was able to do, to be a guest at this English reading hour. And so these are adults for whom English is a second language. So it's a club. So when the local library puts together and they come on a regular basis and they read text, more than a class, they practice having conversations and studying modern texts. And so with April being Poetry Month, what we did was I was able to come in and talk through some of the poems with them. And in one of the poems, the line was infinity. And the question was, pause, this word infinity, what is this? So explain what infinity is. And I went to explaining space. I said, there are no walls to space. There's no border. There's no fence. There's no ending. It just keeps going. It's infinity is bigger than forever. And so hearing you describe that and that being your prompt to wonder, it's bigger than forever. It has no walls, has no borders. It just keeps going.
But look what you said though is also wonder if like there's no borders, there's no walls, and think about, how we can wonder ourselves into a different way of being. What does it mean for there to be no borders, for there to be no walls between us? How does that? And I think we're pushing towards that type of world anyway, where we're going to have to really grapple with these because people are having a more globalistic vision of humanity. But think about how beautiful that is for us to wonder that into existence. No borders, no walls. What does that mean for humanity? What does that mean for these arbitrary differences for these United States of America, which we're very different. Milwaukee is very different from Florida. It's very different from Cali. It's very different from Nevada, so on and so forth. So what makes those divisions more unified than a division between, Milwaukee and Toronto or something like that? So how do we eliminate those things and wonder that into existence?
And what's been interesting with this, as my father calls it, this science fiction movie we've all been living, in this season, here it's been a year, and everything that wasn't possible has become possible. Those borders, those distances melted away with technology that we've always had, right? So with connections that have always been possible, paradigm shifts, and now they're essential. And there are more commonplace, and now look at that, even more connected to more wonder. So that will be interesting. Oh man, but that's such a mindset. So I think about people who moved to Milwaukee, still sadly 20 years in, one of the most segregated cities in the nation, and they come to the city and not being raised there, it's what? I can't go across. We don't do, no, yeah, I'm gonna go to this coffee shop. I'm gonna go have dinner here. I'm gonna go to this theater place. I'm gonna meet it. They don't have the same limitations. How that's can become burned in muscle memory in ways that aren't healthy. For folks that don't know or have absorbed these arbitrary, well, I'm sorry, they weren't arbitrary. They were very intentional, but they're imaginary for certain. So that to take that, so all those ideas of borders and restrictions and limits, I like that. That becomes a definition of wonder, whether it's space or a neighborhood, whether it's a city or or how you choose to love. Remove those restrictions off the vegetables you'll eat, all of those things. It just opens everything when that becomes how you move.
Yeah. And I think that the vastness of space and the kind of the mystery of it it's a good kind of foundation to like put your mind into, to dream something up for the way that we live and give yourself these new possibilities, because we'll continue to discover and we'll continue to push ourselves to get to the point where we can explore, right?
Sure.
And I think that it's just a great space to be in, and it's just fascinating and brings me joy to think about.
I like that. I was going to ask, I think I got the answer with that, with coming back to joy, just giving some honor to the younger Deshawn, the one that you said was shy, the one that I didn't hear that you weren't certain, just maybe just cautious about how to navigate and how to move. There was fear in there, and it was just wanting to keep yourself safe. And that Deshawn is whipping all over the globe. That Deshawn is measuring next steps in relation to space. I hope you're proud of that, Deshawn, too.
Thank you. I hope that young Deshawn, like, I'm doing justice to him and the things that he had to go through in order for me to be who I am today. I hope that he's happy and knows that it's working out, and that story also has given other people permission to be okay and to survive as they navigate those things. So
that's all right. That's all right. Yes, it's definitely working out, which is different from thinking that you have to have it all worked out. And I know we completely mispackaged adulting. We did totally. We didn't sell it well at all. But yeah, definitely working it out. Well, let me ask you this, sir. I would love to hear what poem all of this led you to. But before you share the poem, is there anything that you want to share with the people? A good word, some good news, anything before we?
Yeah, Well, I've just published my debut chapbook, Father Forgive Me, with Black Sunflowers Poetry Press, February, and
Okay.
I'm happy that people are, that's a part of my story too, and giving people that kind of relation. And I think the next biggest thing I have is gonna get a website coming in. I want everything will be concentrated. Of all the music and the poems and the essays and the me will be in this one space, and I'm hoping to connect with people through that. So I'm excited about it.
Hey, it's a process. The people that need to find you always do. They always do. Well, let's hear this poem, sir. What you got? What you find?
All right, so this is a poem I've never read before, but when I found it, I was like, yo, the rhythm and the rhyme it's going it's so lit. So it's called The Starlight Night by Gerard Manley Hopkins. Look at the stars. Look up at the skies. Oh, look at all the fire folks sitting in the air. The bright burrows, the circle citadels there. Down in dim woods, the diamond delves, the elves' eyes. The gray lawns cold where gold, where quick gold lies. Wind beat white beam, airy able set on a flare. Flake dove sent floating forth at a farmyard scare. Ah, well, it is all a purchase, all is a prize. Buy then, bid then, what? Prayer, patience, alms, vows. Look, a May mess like an orchid bows. Look, March bloom like on milled with yellow sallows. These are indeed the barn. Within doors house the shocks. This peace bright, palling shuts the spouse Christ home, Christ and his mother and all his hallows. I mean, come on.
I mean, you just.
I mean, that's like, yo, somebody call Flex, because we need to get him on Hot 97 with those.
I'm
My man,
saying.
it was just the bounce to it, right? Like this. I loved it.
And you did it justice. You did it justice. Thank you for spending this time with me.
This has been a pleasure. It's so much fun.
Yes, website that'll come. We are taking in all of your wondrous energy. And I am incredibly excited for the journey you've already had and what's coming. Oh my goodness. There'll be unnamed animals and there's fireworks going. There's going to be a costume with Gold LeMay involved. It's going to be incredible. It's going to be incredible. And I'm glad that you're open to all of it.
And you know, part of that credit goes to you and all the work that you do with young folks, and you know how you shepherd us all in Milwaukee. And so I'm eternally grateful to you and the spaces that you've created to allow us to find our voice and let us know that our voices matter, and that helps us as we move through the world. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Absolutely my pleasure. It's been absolutely my pleasure. And so it has been absolutely my pleasure truly to have these conversations with brilliant folks who are creative humans, all of us trying to figure our way to the next day, and to have that one little nugget of wonder that can get you from one moment to the next, to give yourself context for the things that you're feeling, to know that we're not by ourselves. And the piece that I found made me wonder about folks who set out on those journeys. We have wonderful moments like this, and then you wonder how they take that into the world and how the world treats them. So similar instructions as I share with the guests, I put in, I wonder how you're doing poem. And this is what popped up. This is by Devon Webb and Matthew Dumas. Sometimes I wonder how you're doing. It feels so long ago, although it hasn't been. It may seem like I'm heartless, but deep down, I knew we wouldn't last. As much as I tried to show you the light, your darkness consumed you, and for a while, it consumed me. We sat there, getting high and playing music. We were just too comfortable. I don't want that. Not anymore. Some fearful walks I would take just to talk with you. Eggshells felt more like glass. And you watched me bleed. In my mind, I thought I could fix you. In my mind, I wanted to show you love. You took it all for granted, and yet sometimes I wonder how you're doing. As much as I want to hate you, I can't. But you will never hear from me again. But I do wonder how you're doing. These life journeys are real, and every exchange you have with someone is an exchange that's going to stick with both of you. You may not remember it, but it did happen. Wonder the impact that we have with each other, on each other, and for each other. Be good to yourself first. We'll see you next week on another Poemalogues with another guest talking about wonder, joy, justice, or legacy in a poem that may happen along the way. See you then.